Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Our glories to Guru Deva, glories to Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Shri Salika Prabhu. Well, it's over. Your voice is faint.
Okay. Hare Krishna, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please welcome to SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM daily recitation. Today is the 29th of the month of November, the year 2022. We are reading a continuation of fourth canto of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, fourth canto, chapter 18. And the text we'll be hearing today from is text number 26. Our original speaker for today, somehow or other, is unavailable, and His Grace Sriman Sahadeva Prabhu has kindly agreed to step in to facilitate the continuation of hearing and speaking on SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. So, dear Sriman Sahadeva Prabhu will be the one speaking to us today. So he will be speaking from fourth canto, chapter 18, text number 16. So Sriman Sahadeva Prabhu, you're welcome to the Hare Krishna platform, your own house.
Hare Krishna.
So
thank you so much.
If you're ready, I would. Oh, sorry, my video is now.
Yeah, please, you may.
Yeah, so if you're ready, then you can put the verse on the screen, then we can start.
Good. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutirayit Nashtaprayashu Abhadrashu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttamastoke Bhakti Bhavaiti Naishtaki. So thank you all for being here today as usual, and somehow or the other our originally scheduled speaker couldn't be here, so again I stepped in to attempt to share my little realization and information I have on the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. So it's more of a sharing than educating. I'm nobody to educate anybody, but it's nice to share, because when we share, the more we share, the more we gain. So today's text is SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM Canto 1, Chapter 18, text number 26. And the text is on the board. So Pratirudendreya prana manubhudim uparatam sthana trayat param praptam brahma bhutam avikriyam Pratirudendreya prana manobuddhim uparatam sthana trayat param praptam brahma bhutam avikriyam. Pratirudendreya prana manobuddhim uparatam sthana trayat param praptam brahma bhutam avikriyam. Synonyms: Pratiruda, restrained. Indriya, the sense organs. Prana, air of respiration. Manan, the mind. Buddhim, intelligence. Uparatam, inactive. Sthana, places. Trayat, from the three. Param, transcendental. Praptam, achieved. Brahmabhutam, qualitatively equal with the Supreme Absolute. Avikriyam, unaffected. Translation and purport by Jagat Guru Param Guru A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: the Muni's sense organs, breath, mind, and intelligence were all restrained from material activities, and he was situated in a trance apart from the three, that is, wakefulness, dream, and unconsciousness, having achieved a transcendental position qualitatively equal with the Supreme Absolute. Purport: it appears that the Muni in whose hermitage the king entered, that is Shamaka Rishi, was in yogic trance. The transcendental position is attained by three processes. The transcendental position is attained by three processes, namely the process of jnana, or theoretical knowledge of transcendence. 2, the process of yoga, or factual realization of trance by manipulation of the physiological and psychological functions of the body. And 3rd, the most approved process of bhakti yoga, or the engagement of senses in devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also, we have the information of the gradual development of perception from a matter to 11th entity. Our material mind and body develop from the 11th entity, the soul, and being influenced by the three qualities of matter, we forget our real identity. The jnana process theoretically speculates about the reality of the soul, but bhakti yoga factually engages the spiritual soul in activities. The perception of matter is transcendent to still subtler states of the senses. The senses are transcended to the subtler mind, and then to breathing activities, and gradually to intelligence. Beyond the intelligence, the loving soul is realized by the mechanical activities of the yoga system, or practice of meditation, restraining the senses, regulating the breathing system, and applying intelligence to rise to the, can you scroll up, please? Intelligence to rise to the transcendental position. This trance stops all material activities of the body. The king saw the Muni in that position. He also saw the Muni as follows. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnana Jnana Shalakaya Chakshir Militam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Sapadanti Kam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Guru Navaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrachatam Saragunantam Vintam Sajivam Sakritam Savadutam Parigana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vintam Scha Vanchakal Pataribhyas Chakripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nitinamine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shritatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavade Paschachati Shatarine Namo Mahavadaya Krishna Prema Pratayate Krishna Ya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guratvite Namaha Nama Brahmanya Devyago Brahmana Hitaya Chajakati Taya Krishna Ya Govindaya Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gatatara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. The Muni's sense organs, breath, mind, and intelligence were all restrained from material activities, and he was situated in a trance apart from the three. These three are wakefulness, dream, and unconsciousness, having achieved a transcendental position qualitatively equal with the Supreme Absolute. Hare Krishna. So, this is a very technical subject matter, which is being discussed here. Sutta Goswami is explaining to us about the genesis or the cause of Maharaj Parikshit's curse. So Maharaj Parikshit, like we heard from Vishwari Prabhu yesterday, had gone in the forest and he was hungry and thirsty. So he came upon Shamaka Rishi, who was in meditation. And he expected it to be recognized and respected, which did not happen because Shamaka Rishi was in trance. And it's very beautiful. We're going to try to see and attempt to understand what trance is. Trance, it's like swoon or faint, like somebody losing consciousness. Consciousness means that we are aware of our personal physical body and our surroundings. But when one faints, swoons, or is in trance, he does not have any connection with his physical material body. Neither is he aware of his surroundings, so he does not know what's going on. So Shamaka Rishi was in such a trance and did not know what was going on around him. So when Maharaj Parikshit got to his hermit, he saw that this rishi was sitting in meditation. So he wasn't sure whether he was actually in meditation or he was feigning to be in meditation. So we will read after all that he picked a dead snake and then he put it over his shoulder. So in the text and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives very, very elaborate purport. Oftentimes, we accept that we follow the Vedic principles and the Vedic teachings. Yes, in one sense, we follow the Vedic teachings. But in one sense, we do not follow the entire Vedic teachings. We follow a section of the Vedic teachings. We follow the section that has been prepared for us by Rupa Goswami. And that is why we are called the Rupanugas. We follow the teachings and the guidance of Sri Rupa Goswami. And that is why Srila Prabhupada, before he came to the West, he went to Rupa Goswami Samadhi and prayed to him for empowerment, guidance, before he came to the West. So in Rupanuga system of following or worshiping Krishna, there are many things taught in the Vedas that we do not follow. One of such is this type of yoga that Shamaka Rishi was performing. We as ISKCON devotees do not practice these things. But it is worth knowing this science. It's very amazing how fortunate we are. Sometimes when one has something in hand, one does not value it until he's lost it. But this principle, this philosophy, this daily life teachings that we are given is priceless. It's matchless. Hare Krishna, Srimad Vanachari, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for being here, Prabhuji. Seeing His Grace Srimad Vanachari reminds me of a particular English word, because I said priceless, that Krishna consciousness is priceless. So I remember first time I saw our book, The Matchless Gift. I don't know if Prabhu will remember. I approached him, I said, Prabhuji, what is the meaning of matchless? I didn't quite understand what matchless means. So His Grace kindly explained to me, matchless means priceless. So Krishna consciousness is matchless. It's a matchless gift. We have such book, Matchless Gift. It's priceless in the sense that modern scientists, modern psychologists are attempting to understand this science which we have, and they still cannot understand like 1/10 of it. Because in modern science, all scientists know is that we have this mind. But according to the teachings of yoga, mind, of course, is one, just like the brain is one, it's just one organ, but there are different parts of the brain that helps one to behave and function differently. In other words, we have like the cerebellum, and then we have the brainstem. All these are parts of the brain, but they function differently. And so if somebody gives me a blow to my temple, which will eventually affect my temporal brain, then it's going to cause a particular side effect to my usage of the brain. At the same time, if someone punches the back of my head, which is like in science, in biology, it's called occipital, which simply means behind the back, it will cause me to behave differently. There is a scientific evidence of how the brain fades when someone develops dementia. Because when someone develops the disease called dementia, his thinking, his memory gets affected. And so it's very difficult to remember. And under the electronic microscope, it can be detected that a particular portion of the brain is kind of washed off. And so even though the brain is one, but different parts of the brain helps us function differently. In the same way, the mind, which is the subtle aspect of the brain, has different functions. And so in yoga, there are different names for this same mind. And that is why in the text itself, Seleka Prabhu, if you may put the text there again for me, I will appreciate, because there are some key words that I would like us to go over.
Which verse?
Same verse 1, 18:26.
Okay, here we go.
Because in the text, Sanskrit language is very interesting because one word in Sanskrit could mean different things. And it requires one who understands the language and the science to understand what you mean. So it says Indriya, which is the sense organs, and then prana. Prana is air of respiration. I mean, in material science, in material education, all we know is that we have air in our body. And that air is air of respiration. So sometimes somebody may be suffering from breathing, and so he's given supplemental oxygen. This oxygen helps us to breathe in and breathe out. But there is another aspect of this air. This kind of air, depending on how a practitioner is able to manipulate this air, one can physically and consciously manipulate this. Okay, you can take it off, Prabhuji. One can consciously and physically manipulate special way of moving the stomach in such a way that if someone has constipation, just by manipulating the air in the stomach, it can enhance the bowel movement. In other words, if someone is constipated, just by manipulating the air in the stomach, you can get rid of the constipation. In the same way, if someone requires to fluctuate, oftentimes like women who deliver in the hospitals and they have to go through cesarean delivery, sometimes are given some sort of medications to numb their senses. And sometimes when they come out of this anesthetic procedure, they are unable to move out air from their stomach. And so there is a science, an art of how to manipulate this air in the stomach to get it out and get yourself freed. But like I said, we as devotees are not very much concerned about these things. But because today's text talks about it, we're going to try to talk a little bit about it. So in the purport and in the text itself, it is said that there are 3 different steps that one may take to realize God. First is jnana. That is knowledge. That is why the ear is very, very important. Without the ear, we cannot learn. We have to hear. Those who do not have the ability to hear, we use symbols and signs to try to tell the individual what we're trying to say. So hearing is very important. And the first step is general knowledge. So somebody speaks, so you see somebody do something, and then we learn. But here it is said, this jnana is theoretical. And that is why we are encouraged not to remain on the level of jnana. We are encouraged to get to the level of vijnana. That is to become wise, not just knowledgeable, just acquiring knowledge, but we should become knowledgeable. In other words, we should become wise, vijnana. And then the next step is yoga. Yoga simply means that we control the mind. Like I said, there are different aspects of the mind. One aspect of the mind is to help us to wonder. When somebody does something, we wonder whether what he did was real or fake. Or if we want to do something, our mind questions us. Can we do it? We cannot do it. So this is one aspect of the mind, which is wondering. And then there is another aspect of the mind, which is also memory, how to remember things, you know. So there are 5 different aspects of the mind, and they're all mind, but they are grouped into 5 different categories. Just as we have one air in our body, but there are different names given to them because there are different types of air in our body. I mean, if we do not breathe, we die. However, even after somebody has been dead for days or maybe weeks, there is still air in the body. And that is why the body swells and then it deflates. So that is also a different type of air. So there are different types of mind. And what yoga actually deals with specifically is 2 parts of the mind. That is to deal with intelligence. Intelligence, to the ability to analyze things in their right perspective. That is the definition given to us by Jagat Krishna Prabhupada. So even though the intelligence is quite different from the mind, but one aspect of the mind is also intelligence. The ability to analyze things and use things in their right perspective. And then the third part, the third aspect of realizing God is Bhakti Yoga. So we realize that in all 3 different spheres, whether it is jnana, whether it is yoga, or whether it is like Bhakti Yoga, they all involve the mind. And that is why Krishna says in the Gita that one should deliver himself by the power of the mind. One should deliver himself from the power of the mind. In today's scientific world, it is said that nobody actually uses more than like 10% of the power of the mind. Those who are able to use more than 6% of their mind are considered to be genius. So we can just imagine the power of the mind. One, by the power of the mind, can sit at one place and make things move at will, just by using the power of the mind. There are many things because of at our level being beginners in the spiritual life, and mostly because this is not the path we follow. Our path is Bhakti Yoga, devotion to God. But we see in Jnana Yoga, you require the mind. In yoga, especially like Patanjali Yoga, you need the mind to control the sense organs. It was said in this text that one should be able to control the demands of the sense organs. You know, I have eyes, and the purpose of the eyes is to look and to see. But when one is in a very deep yoga situation, you do not care about the mind. You do not even care about this body. This sense of touch, you do not care. The sense of thirst, the sense of hunger is not there. And that is why we see in the life of Dhruva Maharaj, when he was observing tapasya, he went through a different series of stages, from a mild stage to a very intense stage, to more intense, to very intense stage, where he was just eating fruits, and then he stopped eating fruits. He was only eating green leaves. He stopped eating green leaves. Then he started eating dry leaves. He stopped eating dry leaves. Then he started just eating on air. And at some point, he stopped even doing that. He wasn't eating on air. He was just there. Just like Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu also did that. He observed so much tapasya, he had anthill built over all his body. But he was still alive. He was still alive. So in SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Salika Prabhu, if you may put this. No, let's do Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Because this text talks about the highest level of amongst the three aspects that one may choose to approach the transcendence. And it is said that the highest of it all is Bhakti Yoga. So this is a very famous verse that lots of devotees know. Mamchaya Vyabhicharana. The last, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Kalpate means becomes, Brahma Bhuyaya. So when one engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the love of Brahman. So when one engages in yoga, all his effort is to transcend all these modes of nature, material nature, to come to the level of Brahman. But why do you have to go through all these intense inconveniences when one can simply live in a house instead of in the forest? You live in the house. You live in a very beautiful house where you have a beautiful temple, you have a beautiful altar, and instead of closing your eyes, you open your eyes to look at the beautiful forms of the Lord. And instead of being silent, you happily chanting and dancing to the holy names of the Lord. And instead of fasting, and initially, when you fast initially, you feel hungry until you transcend to a certain point that you are no more in connection to your material body, that you do not feel the hunger. But why do you have to go through all these inconveniences when you can happily and sumptuously enjoy prasadam and still attend the same platform? So Srila Prabhupada, Sri Krishna, Srila Vyasadeva have made this process so wonderful. Now, Mr. Prabhupada says everything about Krishna consciousness is wonderful. The philosophy is wonderful. Our singing and dancing is wonderful. Our attire is wonderful. Our prasadam is wonderful. And our philosophy is wonderful. So why do we have to shun this to go for anything else, for jhana or for such tapasya like Ashtanga yoga, prayer yoga? All these are different yogas that require very, very intense discipline. Lots of the time, those devotees who worship Lord Shiva, they go through so much intense austerities that, I mean, if you read about it, you hear about it, they sound unbelievable. But people do it. Sometimes somebody will perform this tapasya. How Chandra, the moon god, was given birth to is very interesting. The Chandra, the moon god, his parents are Atri Muni and Anasuya. You know, Atri Muni was performing intense tapasya. He was standing on one leg, even though he had told the wife not to follow him to the forest for the tapasya. The wife Anasuya, being chased, he says, "No, I'll follow you." So she did. But why do we have to go through all this intense pain? We don't. So Srila Prabhupada and Sri Krishna himself explains what Krishna is saying in 1426, that by performing this devotional service, one quickly transcends and situates himself on the platform of Brahman. And when one situates himself on the platform of Brahman, that is not the end of the story. That is not the end of the story. We all know about Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was a very little boy, but he was so fortunate. He was in his mother's womb, and Narada Muni started imparting knowledge to his mother, Kayadi. While he was in the womb, he heard everything Narada Muni imparted to his mother. See, so we knew this science long, millions of years ago, that when a fetus is in the womb, the fetus understands what's going on around him. Until recently, material scientists never believed that the fetus can sense his surroundings. And what the fetus senses around his surroundings helps shape his being when he or she comes out of the womb. And so in today's science, buttressing what our philosophy and teachings give us is that when a mother is pregnant, she should not be drinking. She should not be smoking. Even if you drink or smoke, don't do that. Because if you do, you are knowingly or unknowingly training your child to do the same. Speak nicely. Watch nice movies. And so in our teachings, we are told and taught that when a mother is pregnant, listen to Krishna pastimes. Look at Krishna's photos and pictures. Associate with devotees. In this way, you are building such aura around you, and your child is going to imbibe such energy. And so Narada Muni, in his mother's womb, was he hearing all these transcendental teachings that Narada Muni was giving to his mother. And so he learned right from the womb. And that is why when he came out of the womb, even though his father was a big demon, he wasn't going to follow his father's teachings because he had heard a better teachings. And so in SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Salika Prabhu, SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 7, Chapter 7, verse 21, Narada Muni says something very beautiful there. All glories to Narada Muni, Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prahlad Maharaj, 7:21. So this is how important it is that when we hear somebody speak from the scriptures, we should try to keep whatever we've heard and try to live them, just like Maharaj Parikshit did. Sorry, Sri Prahlad did. So this is what Sri Prahlad is saying. This is a very young boy. There is no way a very young boy can speak this intelligence. But this is what he's saying. He says an expert geologist can understand where there is gold, and by various processes can extract it from the gold ore. Similarly, a spiritually advanced person can understand how the spiritual particle exists within the body. And thus, by cultivating spiritual knowledge, he can attain perfection in spiritual life. However, as one who is not expert cannot understand where there is gold, a foolish person who has not cultivated spiritual knowledge cannot understand how spirit exists within the body. Very beautiful. So, sure, Prahlad Maharaj is giving this amazing knowledge to his fellow classmates and to his teachers. He was there to be taught, but now he is teaching his teachers that an expert geologists are those who study nature of rocks, and the earth crust and things like that, the topography. So an expert geologist knows where to find gold, and he knows how to extract it. One who is not a geologist and one who is not an expert geologist, even though he may see gold, cannot identify it. There is this story about one village in my country, Ghana. Now, Ghana used to be called Gold Coast because the land is full of gold. But there was a very poor man who had just used mud to build a house, and he was living in that mud house, not knowing the very mud he's used to build a house is full of gold. That is what ignorance can do. Someone living in a very thatched mud house, there is nothing in there because he doesn't have money. Meanwhile, the mud used in building that house is full of gold. Why doesn't he know? Because he's not an expert. He doesn't know. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying, giving the same scenario, that there are many people who live in this body, but because they are not experts, they're ignorant, they do not even know that there is a spirit living in this body. And this spirit is different from this body. And within this within this body are many different elements that can be manipulated to also help the individual to realize that he is something more than just this gross and subtle elements. And so in the same canto, same chapter, verse 28, 7:28, Prahlad Maharaj goes further to buttress what Sutta Goswami said in 1:18:26. So Salika Prabhu 7:28. Yes. Srila Prabhupada made reference to the verse we discussed here. Therefore, my dear friends, O sons of the demons, your duty is to take to Krishna consciousness, which can burn the seed of fruitive activities artificially created by the modes of material nature and stop the flow of the intelligence in wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. In other words, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, his ignorance is immediately dissipated. The most important thing here is to stop the flow of the intelligence in wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. These are the three things Prabhupada referenced to in 1:18:26. That when one is able to situate himself in perfect yoga, he shuts everything off. He shuts everything off, including this wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. So when one is in such samadhi, even though he is sitting there, but he's not awake. He's not awake. And he is not like half asleep. We have this psychologist in the West, a very famous psychologist, Sigmund Freud. He came up with the different aspects of the mind. Of course, this mind is different from the brain, and it's also not physical, like the brain being an organ that you can touch and feel. It's subtle. So Sigmund Freud came up with these ideas that the mind has three aspects. The first aspect is the id, and the second aspect is the ego, and the third aspect is the false ego, which is very similar to yoga, because yoga also talks about the mind, and it talks about different functions and aspects of the mind. So it talks about intelligence, buddhi. It talks about ego, and it also talks about false ego. So there is ego and there is false ego. So id, it's very interesting how Freud came up with this word. It is a word he coined, and I may be speculating here, but I'm pretty much sure that he borrowed it from the Vedic teachings, because id is what makes one behave like an animal. That is that part of the mind that makes one behave like an animal. And why does that make one behave like an animal? Because it is influenced by id. And what is id? It means ID, identification. We identify ourselves as I and mine. And once we start doing things based on I and mine, excuse me, we become and behave like animals, because one begins to think that this is mine, it's not yours. Why do you touch it? Why do you want to come here? This is not your country, it's my country. Why do you want to come in here? This belongs to me, that does not belong to you. So in this way, we become and behave like animals. And then we have the ego and the superego. All these are different parts of the mind. But like I said, and Sri Prabhupada said in the paper, what is the use of trying to study all these things? There is no harm in studying. Don't get me wrong, it's okay to study. But if there is a better way of doing things, why do you go around doing things in a very hard way? For example, if you can fly plane from New York City to Lagos, why would you decide, good, why would you choose to drive a car, or to drive, or to ride a motorbike, or to ride a bicycle, or to walk? Doesn't make sense. Better fly. So Krishna, Srila Vyasadeva, has prepared this Vedic system in such a way that he has compartmentalized it. Those in the mode of ignorance, there is a path you can choose. Those in the mode of passion, there is a path you can choose. Those in the mode of goodness, there is a path you can choose. And those on the path of super good, there is a path you can choose. But at least goodness, the mode of goodness is very close to divine goodness. So why don't we start from there? And starting from there means that we practice bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga means that we engage all our senses in the service of Krishna, nothing else. So we use our eyes to see the beautiful forms of the Lord. We use our ears to hear about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. We use our tongue to taste prasadam. We use our tongue to speak and sing about Krishna and his devotees. We use our hands to write about Krishna, to play cymbals, play mridanga, play musical instruments, to honor and praise Krishna. We use our hands to clean Krishna's temple. We use our feet to go to the market and buy burger. So we use all our senses. We use all our senses in the service of Krishna. That is the ultimate, that is the highest form of yoga. And that is why, in one sense, devotees are also yogis. Sri Krishna told Arjuna that under all circumstances, Arjuna, you should become a yogi. But when Krishna told Arjuna, under all circumstances, you should become a yogi, he did not mean that Arjuna should sit at one place and meditate and fast. He engaged or implored him to use all his senses to engage in the service of Krishna. And so that is the fortune we have, that we are taught how to use all our senses in the service of Krishna. And the way Srila Prabhupada so wonderfully crafted ISKCON is such that if one strictly follows the precepts and the concepts of Hare Krishna movement, one may knowingly or unknowingly be engaging all his senses in the service of Krishna. You wake up in the morning, you take shower, you do some japa, you attend Mangarati, you listen to classes, you honor prasadam, you go out to distribute books, you come back, you take shower, you honor prasadam, you attend class, you're tired, you chant, you sleep, you wake up. So in this way, 24/7, all our senses are engaged in the service of Krishna. So I would like to end here, and since there are great devotees here, they may also help all of us to get deeper into this text, which I find to be quite technical because Srila Prabhupada did not delve so much into it because it is unnecessary for us. He gave us what is necessary for our ability to going back home, back to Godhead, in the form of Bhakti Yoga, rather than Ashtanga, Kriya Yoga, or Jnana. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Salika Prabhu, for keeping me here.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
Thank you very much, Simon Sahadev, for the beautiful, technical, philosophical, and spiritual combined discourse. At some point in time, I was closing my eyes and opening it to see whether I'm still having Sahadev speaking or some scientist was speaking from the behind. He's just mimicking. Because at some point in time, we went into start speaking like the scientist. So I was wondering whether Sahadev is still speaking or some scientist was behind the scene and speaking. Thank you very much for going.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Referencing from the Bhakti level, from spiritual point of view, from the scientific point of view, and from the mental perspective. how this verse covers all of the area. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. So, dear devotees, we've added all this beautiful class. So, if there is questions or comments or contribution, please we request that we indicate by using the hand emoji or directly raising our hands to ask questions or make comments. Thank you. So while we wait for that, the text we're reading to 118:26. This is why it is said that when devotee speaks, depending on the level of realization, same statement, same verse, you could hear continuously for days or even months, and then there will be different realization. I'm sure if another devotee comes up to speak on this verse, he will speak something completely different from what you see, and he will still end up in verse. You said so much about the analytical difference between Gyan Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Prabhupada started the point. Prabhupada has a way of capturing the essence of a verse in the way he presents the purport. So in the first line of the purport, Prabhupada said it appears that the Muni in whose hermitage the king entered was in yogi trance. And that's where my question is coming from. It appears the yogi was in a yogi trance. Could we say that Prabhupada didn't know whether he was actually in yogi trance or he was, because when he said it appears, the word it appears means that. So sometimes Prabhupada will present a purport in such a way that it puts you in the thinking mood. So I'm wondering what Prabhupada meant when he said it appears the state in which it entered his hermitage was in a trance mode. And then he went further to say the transcendental position is attained by 3 processes. He went into another subject matter. That's when he started talking about Gyan and the different types of yoga. But that first statement, please, I would like you to elaborate on that. Was Prabhupada also in the mood of Maharaj Parikshit? Because Maharaj Parikshit is a pure devotee by all standards. He ought to know one who is in a trance, and then for him not to have recognized that he was in trance and engaged in the act that led to his being caused by the young Brahmana boy is something to be questioned. That one is a one thing. And just like Maharaj Parikshit, Prabhupada also is saying here that it appears that the yogi was in a trance. So please, could you explain that for I understand it?
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you. His Grace Alika Prabhu. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada has a very unique way of writing. I actually heard His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Maharaj say that usually when one writes a book, he writes to, of course, to give some information, but behind giving the information is also to impress upon people how much he knows and how much educated he is. But when Srila Prabhupada writes, he writes not to show off. He writes to help the reader to come and dance together with him the sweet nectar of Krishna consciousness. And so Srila Prabhupada also wants us to use our mind to study, to understand what's going on. So when Srila Prabhupada says, it appears, and in the purport, it appears means that, it appears may mean that whoever is saying that is not 100% sure of what he's talking about. But he 100% knows what he's talking about. But the reason why he makes such a statement is because he wants to get the readers on board. He does not just want somebody to read and be given on silver platter what it is, but you should also, that's why Srila Prabhupada always encourages us to study the books scrutinizingly. And so in the same purport, Srila Prabhupada explains what trance means, that you do not recognize anything physically. Your mind, your sense organs, and everything is disconnected. And so if we read that and we see how Shamaka Rishi was sitting there in Tapasya, I was saying yesterday that Shamaka Rishi is such an astute Tapasya, Tapasini, I should say, that the only way he ate was when the cows drank the milk from their mother cows, and there is a little bit of foam forming around the mouth. That is what he feeds on. It's unimaginable, it's unthinkable. But this is how austere he was. So for him to be just feeding on this thing and be sitting at one place with his body still intact. No, he's not become so lean. He's not become so thin because of depriving himself from eating. And so we should understand that it is something transcendental, it's something beyond what physical material demands require. And so Srila Prabhupada, in effect, is trying to get the reader on board with him to study what situation Shamaka Rishi was actually in at the time. Because Srila Prabhupada knew that he was in trance. And from 27, 28, 29, it will be revealed that he was actually in trance. And Srila Prabhupada knew this. And the same thing, if one reads Canto 5 of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, where Srila Prabhupada talks so much about the different planetary systems. Srila Prabhupada oftentimes will say that I did not study geography, I don't know geography. You know, I'm not a scientist, I do not know these things. But no one can read any statement made in any of the Canto 5 and challenge. It's impossible. For example, Srila Prabhupada said that from Earth, we get to the sun before we get to the moon. You know, scientists say otherwise. Scientists say we get to the moon before the sun. Now it's up to an individual to believe which is which. Srila Prabhupada said that he knows how the moon planet is, that the scientists did not go to the moon planet. And I mean, that caused some of his disciples to actually believe his association. But as it is today, it has been evidently proven that the scientists never went to the moon. It was staged. It was staged. So that is the difference between a self-realized person speaking and a mundane person speaking. For example, it is said that Narada Muni saw Mohini Murti when Krishna incarnated as Mohini to bring out the nectar and divide it amongst the devas and the demons in their spirits. That form is said to be so beautiful and so charming that it charms everyone. But that form does not charm pure devotees of the Lord as much as Radharani. Those who are obsessed with lust, when they see Mohini, they fall. And so there is this statement said that Narada Muni when he first saw Radharani, he couldn't believe that there could be anything as beautiful as that. Radharani had seen Mohini Murti before, but Mohini's beauty is nowhere close to Radharani's beauty. Again, in the same way, it said Narada Muni, when he went to Vrindavan to participate in Krishna's pastime, he saw morning, noon, evening, dusk, twilight, night, all together at the same time. All together at the same time. So these pure devotees, sometimes they speak in such a way that they encourage the practitioners and the hearers to also try to reason and use their mind to question. Is it the way it is? Could it be like this? Could it be like that? That is allowed. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Smart Sahadeva, for that beautiful answer. Even though your answer has led to another question, but then His Grace Sitan Prima Prabhu's hand is up. So I'll allow him to go first. Sitan Prima Prabhu, please kindly unmute and then ask a question. Do you want to give comments?
Hare Krishna. Dhanava Pranam.
Yeah, very good day.
Thank you for the beautiful lecture. Very vast, and you were able to harmonize things from different polarities, and very beautiful. But there's something I need a clarification of. Like in the Gita, Krishna said, earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are 5 gross elements, Pancha Mahabhuta. Then we have the mind, intelligence, and ego. And that each element is 10 times thicker. Like the intelligence is 10 times thicker than the ego. The mind is 10 times thicker than the intelligence. Then the air until the earth is the thickest. But in your presentation just now, you said that if I heard you correctly, that the ego is also an aspect of the mind. So if you can clarify that for us a little bit. Is it an aspect of the mind or is a different element, the ego?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. It's a very beautiful and very relevant question. Just as in our scriptures, we know that this earth is just one planet. But we hear when Maharaj Parikshit, when Maharaj Yudhishthira were ruling the earth planet, there were other beings outside of the earth planet who were also ruled over by these Maharajas. And even though they were, like you may say, not directly on the earth planet, but they were still considered to be part of the earth. It is said, and so what I'm trying to say is that I said in the material science, they do not have this understanding of the different aspects of the mind. Because mind is one, like I was saying, the brain is one, but scientists have been able to identify the brain to have different functions based on their different locations. So the brain, which is closest to my forehead, helps me to think differently. The one to the side of my ear helps me to think differently. The one to my ear helps me to think differently. Now, this same brain, as gross as it is, also has a subtle aspect. where it is called, there is, you know how like you have a dam, you have a river flowing, and there is a dam. So you close the dam, and all the water stays behind. And so the water rises. And so in the brain and the mind, there is also a bridge that can be closed and be opened. It is a pain bridge. And so when someone has pain and it takes a pain medication, it's interesting and beautiful. What this pain medication does is that it goes to that particular point where that gate is and then blocks that gate. And therefore, one does not feel pain anymore. It does not mean that whatever initially caused the pain is gone. It's still there. But the mind is now being blocked. That particular spot is now being blocked from experiencing the pain. And so in the yoga system, the mind, because I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but what I've learned and heard from other teachers is that there are different words in Sanskrit used for the different aspects of the mind, because the mind in Sanskrit can be referred to as manas, which is the mind. The mind at some point can also be referred to as chitta. Chitta is mind, mana is mind, but mana is different from chitta. Just like I was saying that there is air in our body, which is oxygen. But when I do not have oxygen, I die. But even after I'm dead, does that mean that there is no more air in my body? There is still air in my body. And that is why the body swells and then it deflates. And so technically speaking, because we are not Sanskrit scholars and we do not speak Sanskrit, we have to borrow English words. And borrowing English words sometimes cause confusion. There is a difference between intelligence and mind. At the same time, one aspect of the mind can be referred to as intelligence. One aspect of the mind can be referred to as ego. One aspect of the mind can be referred to as false ego. There is, let me see if I can give you a reference here. Okay. There is this book called Namarupa. And Namarupa in chapter 35, it says that in the Sankhya system, reality is perceived as the product of two distinct ontological categories. That is Prakriti, or primordial material matrix of the physical universe, and Purusha, the conscious innermost self. The first and the subtlest evolutes from Prakriti, according to Sankhya, and they are in order. One is Buddhi, which is intelligence, Ahankara, ego, and then Manas, the mind. These constitute the inner life of an individual. The term chitta is used in this verse and throughout the text by Patanjali and the commentators to refer to all three of these cognitive functions. You see, so yes, there is difference between mind, intelligence, and ego, but when it comes to yoga, oftentimes they use one word to refer to different aspects of the mind and also refer to the mind, intelligence, and ego. So you are right that there is a difference between the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego. as bhakti yogis. But for the Patanjalis and those who practice Sankhya Yoga or Kriya Yoga, the mind is having that compartment of the intelligence, the ego, and the false ego. I don't know if that helps Sri Chaitanya Prema Prabhu.
Yeah, Sri Pri.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's a very intelligent and very important question. Of course, he's our revered teacher, so he's always going to be asking intelligent questions. But it wouldn't make sense to say that the mind is intelligence and ego and false ego. But that is, it only makes sense when one is applying it to this Sankhya philosophy, Patanjali.
Thank you very much for the explanation, Sahadeva. I'm just in the middle here trying to comprehend both the question and the answer, because when the professor and the principal of the Vedic School of Academy is talking, the student just have to try to grasp what is going on. But thank you very much for the question. So if there are any questions, comments from devotees, please kindly indicate. We shouldn't allow His Grace Mansade to intimidate us with his right. Yeah, Vara Acharya Prabhu, please kindly unmute. Vara Prabhu, please kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna. Jai, all glories to Prabhupada. My obeisances to everybody.
Hare Krishna. Please give a comment.
It's an interesting topic, and as text, of course, I came late, but it becomes more interesting because of the. It becomes more interesting because of the Sankhya yoga, which you are saying that Prabhupada did not comment on because he has given us back to yoga. So I just want to say that, like it is said often, that Bhakti Yoga comprises everything. And it is easier for us to repeat that without necessarily knowing how it comprises everything. But it is easier for us to repeat that without even knowing much about the different components of this different yoga. And that becomes dangerous, because if you meet practitioners of this other yoga, you may be confused or maybe perplexed when they start presenting their understanding of their own aspect of yoga. I don't know where that echo is coming from. Is it from my side?
Yeah, I think it's coming from your hand.
Even when I keep quiet, it's still repeating, huh? Anyway, so what I want to say, just briefly, because I still have another question, which is in my mind, but this brief comment is chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita. Please read that. Chapter 5, text 4 and text 5. Krishna says, only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world. Thank you. I repeat that. Only the ignorant speak of karma yoga and devotional service as being different from the analytical study of the material world. Thank you. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these parts achieves the result of both. Very deep. And text 5 One who knows that the position reached by means of renunciation can also be attained by works in devotional service.
Analytical study.
And who therefore sees that the part of works and the part of renunciation are one. Anyway, so it's text 4 that is more interesting. So anyway, that's a very deep subject matter. And I'm just drawing your attention to that so that you know that Prabhupada, of course, may not comment on it that much, but both are considered to be the same because they give the same result. That's what Krishna says. So it behooves on us to understand that analytical aspect of yoga because it is very interesting and it helps us to actually appreciate what we are doing as Bhakti yogis, if we are really Bhakti yogis. So that is just my brief comment on that. If you want to say something, otherwise I have another polemic in my mind since yesterday.
No,
I think
there is an echo. Where is it coming from?
yeah, I don't know where it's coming from because I muted myself for some moments to see
Yeah.
if it's coming.
Except maybe Srimad Prabhu has 2 devices turned on.
No, only one.
Oh, okay. Well, Prabhuji, what you just shared is very beautiful. And actually, that confirms the text we discussed itself today, because in the text, Sutta Goswami plus Srila Prabhupada plus Prahlad Maharaj, all these 3 different personalities are all saying that there are these different 3 modes by which one can transcend: jnana, yoga, and then bhakti. And I was saying is that we do not necessarily have to follow the first and the second, because what Srila Prabhupada gave us was mostly bhakti yoga. That does not mean that we look down on those or we shun them, but we do not need to stress so much importance on it in our application, because like you rightly said, bhakti yoga encompasses all the other linga or aspects of transcendence also. But this is what Srila Prabhupada has given us. That's why I said initially, maybe you were not here at the time, that one, we may say we follow Vedic. In one sense, we will say we do not follow Vedic, because following Vedic entails so many things. Like I always say, we have some practitioners who drink from human skull. And it is part of Vedic teachings. But we follow what Sri Rupa Goswami has designed for us. And Sri Prabhupada went to Rupa Goswami Samadhi and prayed for his guidance and empowerment. And so what Sri Prabhupada gave us is exactly what Rupa Goswami has taught. And therefore, even though we do not ignore or condemn those like karma yoga and things like that, we do not draw much emphasis on it. One can actually follow those paths and become transcendental. But our path is bhakti. So what you're saying, I really appreciate that, because we may be tempted to look down upon others who do not practice exactly as we do, which will be dangerous. But we also have to stay loyal to what has been given to us by Param Guru. And that is just following the, like I was saying, you wake up, you chant, all those itineraries that Sri Prabhupada has given us. That's all we need. Hare Krishna. I think you said you had a question?
Sure. I have a question. See, what you've just described is called Bhakti Made Easy. Sometimes, like you study a book, they say, biology made easy, or economics made easy. Yeah. So Bhakti Made Easy is what you're describing.
Yeah.
But if you want to go into the nitty-gritty of Bhakti, it is also the same like Sankhya Yoga. That's what Krishna said in that verse.
Yeah.
If you want to go into the nitty-gritty of Bhakti, then you will see all the other aspects of Gyan, of yoga, mystic yoga in Bhakti. But we are limiting ourselves to the Bhakti Made Easy given to us, and which is all right. But as students, it behooves us to go deeper. If you read chapter 13, text 6 and 7, where Krishna described all the different elements, Srila Prabhupada said in the purport that these things are not discussed fully here. And any student who is interested should study this beyond what is written in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so that is just briefly. Now, what is my question? This is not very much related to your class.
May I say something in regards to what you just said, Prabhuji? And
Right.
that is, yes, you're 100% right about what you just said. Srila Prabhupada gave us what appears to be very simple, but at the same time, it is not simple because even what appears to be simple gives us the ultimate, and therefore it's not simple. Now, in the verse we read, it talks about the 3 different aspects of God realization. We have the Brahmani realization, we have the Paramatma realization, and then we have the Bhagavani realization. And they're all realization, they're all transcendence. But when Arjuna asked Krishna, which of these should I meditate on? Which of these should I concentrate my mind on? We know Krishna himself told him, he says, meditate on this form as you see me here. And so once we meditate on Krishna as 200 form, as a Bhagavan, the Brahman and the Paramatma are all encased in that. And so like you rightly said, once we perform bhakti, all other forms of yoga are embedded in it. But the mistake sometimes we make is that simply because we're practicing bhakti yoga, we look down on the other aspects of the different branches of yoga, which I am learning not to do, and I'm also encouraging devotees not to do. And I think Srila Prabhupada did not also encourage us to look down on other forms of approaches to Krishna. But even though they are all transcendental, there is also a gradation. Just as it is said that there are aspects, there are all different forms of Krishna. And there are worshippers of Lord Ram, worshippers of Narayan, worshippers of Vishnu. But Srila Prabhupada says this, but devotees have accepted and concluded that those devotees who serve Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan are the topmost. So those things are also there, where it says they are all the same, at the same time, not the same. It's very interesting. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so let me quickly go to my question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like I said.
Before you go to the question, actually, I was just ruminating as you were mentioning, based on the verse that you quoted, chapter 5 of the Bhagavad Gita, how they all meant the same thing. But looking at what Prabhupada gave to us in Krishna consciousness, and like you use the word bhakti made easy, there are several references in the scriptures where it is mentioned that according to place, time, and circumstances, a particular yoga is prevalent. And I just started wondering, and Prabhupada, even in Krishna told Arjuna in chapter 12 that for those who are embodied, the part of this Sankhya Yoga is very difficult. Impersonal realization is very difficult. And most importantly, with the point I wanted to refer to is that in this age, looking at the condition of the divinity that are in this age, wouldn't it be too difficult to go deeper into studying simultaneously alongside with trying to do bhakti? Because bhakti in itself, like you rightly said, is a very deep path that has a lot. And like SAHADEVA said, we are just even taking a pinch of the process of bhakti. Wouldn't it be distractive if we want to go deeper into studying all other processes of bhakti together with what we see? Even though I understand the point you are making, but I wanted to elaborate on that because I can remember in relation to what you just said, in the late 1990s to stroke early 20s, when so many yoga paths were coming into the Nigeria, because in the beginning there were not so many Brahma Kumaris, there are no so many other paths coming from the Vedic tradition into West Africa. But from the mid 90s to late 90s to early 2000s, we saw so many of these groups coming, and they are giving so many things. And I personally have an experience that there are so many devotees, not talking of America now, but even in West Africa, even in Nigeria, who got attracted and distracted by those yogis and by those philosophies. And we're talking about the Kundalini, talking about different aspects of yoga processes. And they got distracted and they left. Even some of them left completely the path of bhakti because of that. So I understand from the path the angle you're coming from, that it is important to have an idea of that. But the way it sounds from the presentation is looking as if there is a kind of a deficiency if we do not study that alongside with bhakti. So I would like us to clarify on that.
Do I speak?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead.
Yeah. So if you had listened to my question, then maybe there will be no need for all this because my question is actually going to help you to understand more. Of course, what you're saying is right. At the same time, this different level of yoga are meant for different practitioners, different level of consciousness, different level of consciousness. Like you cannot, the example we use most often is that like arithmetic to calculus. You cannot teach calculus to a child, a primary school pupil. It's just impossible. You cannot teach geometry to or algebra to a primary school child. You cannot understand why x plus y, x plus y gives z. You cannot understand. So, but in spiritual life, we just think that when we're speaking about philosophy bhakti, and we just, we make it like it is a general knowledge. It is not. There is the different aspect and the postgraduate and the advanced level. And if you're not a student of that, don't even just bother your head to talk about it. Just accept your bhakti made easy. You understand? Now, that is what I was trying to ask as a question yesterday from that Prabhu. And I, humbly accept whatever I was saying, but he did not address my concern. Because such a concern, it's very important to help people to be able to progress without them coming to the conclusion thinking that they know everything already, that they are already practitioners. No, we are, neophytes. A lot of us, we are neophytes. We are not. Let me just ask you a question. That is the question I want to put to SAHADEVA Prabhu, so that he can remember my question to that Prabhu yesterday. Who are the sages of Naimisarayan? Who are the sages of Naimisarayan? Every time we give class, we talk about the sages of Naimisarayan. Are the sages of Naimisarayan people working in offices and coming to hear Bhagavatam class? Are the sages of Naimisarayan those who have family and business to attend to? These are the people hearing Bhagavatam. Now, will you compare yourself with these people? No. So we are thinking that we're on the same level with the sages of Naimisaraya. We're just philosophizing on Srimad Bhagavatam like it is a subject for us. It's not for you. You're only benefiting by the grace of Prabhupada, but this is not meant for our own level. People who work in the offices looking for how to make ends meet, have daily problem, headache. Srimad Bhagavatam is not for them. It's not on their level. It is meant for self-realized souls who are already liberated souls. So when we are presenting it, we shouldn't make it look like even that market woman and that man struggling in his office job, he should have the same realization. This is what I was trying to point out to that Prabhu. Why are you making it look like it is a subject for everybody? It is, by grace, we're getting it. But are we on the level of the sages of Naimisaraya? Are we on the same level with Mara Parishit? No, I'm not trying to create another cliché or a niche for the subject, but I'm just trying to say that when he's saying that you should be absorbed, like that kind of class, he could give it to brahmacharis in the temple, who have already said, okay, I've given my life to God. So be absorbed in hearing Krishna Katha 24 hours in the bedroom while you're eating, while you're moving, everything. Fine. But you're not speaking, if you're speaking that same type of philosophy to general practitioners, you are creating a kind of impression that spiritual life means to abandon everything. And he was saying that there's nothing like being too spiritual. I did not want to argue with him, because many people make the mistake of being too spiritual and then they lose even the spiritual part.
Yeah, there is such a thing.
That's a fact. And he also mentioned that, yes, we used to talk about being balanced. Why do we talk about balance? Because where are we coming from? And what is the subject we're studying? Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita is different. It's philosophy, ABC. Srimad Bhagavatam is for liberated souls.
Yeah.
And if you're chance to speak about it, if you're chance to hear about it, you should just, try to absorb yourself as much. But don't start giving a kind of recommendation that if a PhD student, the type of absorption he needs to be able to write his thesis, is it what a secondary student needs to make his composition on his when he has to write composition, secondary school level? Does he have that? Does he need that level of absorption that a PhD needs to write a thesis? No. So why are we making everything, this spiritual knowledge like it is? Of course, everyone speaks according to his realization. But I was trying to bring him, because from the time he gave that lecture about a month ago, I've been meditating on the way he was presenting. And maybe this is good for the people in the ashram. Maybe he's been listening to lecture Bhagavatam given to brahmacharis, and he's coming to present that like a general knowledge. There's something wrong. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I don't know about others, but I 101% agree to everything you're saying. But there is this word, but, which is always a controversial word. I accept everything you're saying, but I also have something to add to it, and that is, you are absolutely right that Srimad Bhagavatam is not for any ordinary God worshiper. So it's just by chance. I remember maybe lots of you also had this experience that maybe you are in school, maybe you are in 5th grade, and you know somebody in 4th grade. And then when you had to move on to 6th grade, this person from 4th grade was also promoted to 6th grade. He did not have to go to 5th grade before 6th grade, from 4th grade straight to 6th grade. And so that is the opportunity Srila Prabhupada has given us. At the other time, not on this platform, it is a Gita Nagri. I was giving Chaitanya Charitamrita class. And I was saying it that Bhagavad Gita is for secondary students. Bhagavatam is for graduates. Chaitanya Charitamrita is for postgraduates. And I have not even been to secondary in spiritual life. I have not been to graduate school in devotional life. And now I'm here speaking on postgraduate topics. But that is how Srila Prabhupada designed the system. That in most cases, people expect people to serve a particular role based on experience. Every country is ruled over by a head, a president, and nobody has that experience. The first time becoming a president, no matter what you had done in your life, you had never become the president of a country. And so the presidents learn on the job. And so similarly as devotees, even though we are, oh my Krishna, we are nowhere close to, like we already said, the sages of Naimisharanya. We are nowhere close, but Srila Prabhupada, Srila Dasadev, they put all these things down for us to follow, to see, and use that as a pattern for us to follow how we can also dedicate our lives to God. I mean, I was talking about Srila Prabhupada designed ISKCON. I'm living in my own little cubicle house here. I don't follow that. I mean, some time ago, I was following that when I used to live in the temple. I do not follow that now, but because I've had that training, even when I'm unable to wake up in the morning to attend Mangarati, whenever I wake up, in my mind, I try to think about what I need to do. I've always been saying this, the Midday Temple, His Grace Srivas Vadachari, at the time we didn't even have breakfast to eat. And he kept talking about, we're going to build a temple, we're going to build a temple. And me with my big mouth, I asked him, we don't even have what to eat. And you keep talking about building a temple, big temple. And Prabhuji quietly smiled and then says, Prabhuji, we have to keep talking about it. Keeping talking about it will manifest. And it did. We didn't have anything to eat. But when we had nothing to eat, because we kept talking about building the temple, we eventually were able to build a temple. So yes, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam should not make us think or feel that we are on that level. We are not. But at the same time, we should try to mold our lives in such a way that we can attempt to emulate the sage's interest in hearing the Bhagavatam. That's all I can say. Hare Krishna. Maybe His Grace Srivas Padachari, you may have something to add to it.
Thank you very much, Sadhu, for that sharing of personal.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srivas Padachari, just a second, sorry. I want to share some, and then after I share that, then you can make it know. Actually, I was going to call you to enlighten us on this. Because like Sahadeva Prabhu said, what Srimad Prabhu said is absolutely, completely correct. And I totally agree with that. But like he said, also I have a but, because this part given by Lord, and him, Srimad Prabhu also mentioned this, by the special mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we are opportune. And then when the philosophy is presented like this, we are only doing what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to do. And that is why it becomes easy to be encouraged. I'll quote 3 verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 19, text 54, 74, and 75. I'll just read that, and then I'll allow His Grace Srivas Vanachari to enlighten us further on this verse. In text 54, this is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila chapter 19, text number 54. This verse was quoted in the conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said that we offer our respectful obeisances unto the merciful Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has converted all 3 worlds, which were maddened by ignorance and saved from their distressed condition by making them mad with nectar from the treasure house of love of God. God, let us take full shelter of that supreme personality of God, the Sri Krishna Chaitanya, whose activities are wonderful. Now, let's go further. The mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mentioned. There are several verses in this chapter, actually. So Vallabha Bhattacharya is continuing the conversation, but let's go straight because there are all of the verses here. And when we go into the purport of these verses, we will explain a little bit more further. But let me just quote these two other verses. 74 says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said, a person who has the pure characteristics of a Brahmana due to devotional service, which is like a blazing fire burning to ashes all the sinful reactions of past lives, is certainly saved from the consequences of sinful acts, such as taking birth in a lower family, even though he may be born in a family of dog eaters. He is recognized by learned scholars. But although a person may be a learned scholar in Vedic knowledge, he is not recognized if he is an atheist. For a person, text number 75, for a person devoid of devotional service, birth in a great family or nation, knowledge of the revealed scriptures, performance of austerities and penance, and chanting of Vedic mantras are all like ornaments on a dead body. Such ornaments simply serve the concocted pleasure of the general populace. So these three verses I quoted, when you look back at this same chapter of the Bhagavatam we are looking at reading, this first canto, chapter 18, in the last 10 verses behind this verse, when Sutta Goswami was being introduced by the sages of Naimi Saraya, and when they were recommending him to speak to them, they emphasized the fact that his personality, from where he was coming from, and he himself acknowledged that he is born from nowhere that is qualified. And then Prabhupada went to explain and reference the life of Narada Muni himself in his previous life. So the fact that devotees sometimes present Krishna consciousness as so simple was just in the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even though this is the most highest thing, but then it is made, like use the word, bhakti made easy. But that does not, because bhakti is made easy, does not defeat the fact that it is accessible to anyone, irrespective of their level of elevation in God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. I just wanted to share that. Thank you very much, Sahadev. So, Simon, Vanachari, please.
Yeah, please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
What I can say is that, first of all, our speaker of yesterday, His Grace Vishwarup Prabhu, is a born Brajabasi. His parents are Brajabasis. He's a Brajabasi. He's from Varsana. And so he's speaking from that platform as a Brajabasi from birth, who is well versed and well cultured in the science of bhakti. So, and of course, he belongs to the Chaupati Radha Gopinath Temple community, where they actually study the scripture very seriously. All the devotees there, maybe 95%, 98%, are scholars. They study the scriptures very well. They study. Every devotee does all the courses, all the Shastri courses. Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhava, Bhakti Vedanta, and Bhakti Samrabhoma. All the devotees, they do that. It's compulsory. So, so that background is coming from. So I was in a class. I was listening online. I was not in the Zoom class, but I was listening on the
YouTube.
YouTube, yes. I listen on YouTube.
Yeah.
And after the class, I listen again a second time. And this, I was thinking, while he was speaking, I was thinking that, you see, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is like a flow of nectar. Srimad Bhagavatam is a flow of nectar. And according to your capacity, according to your level of purity, according to your level of commitment, according to your level of
Advancement.
devotion or whatever, you connect accordingly. So when he's speaking, different devotees are going to be connected at different levels. And that's not normally the case. When somebody speaks, according to the audience may be a variety. Audience may be a mixed audience.
Mm.
But there are some people in the audience who would drink the nectar fully. Some will drink it at a certain level. Some will get very little out of it. But it's all based on our commitment, our purity, our determination, and all of these things. So certainly, you cannot get everybody on the platform or the speaker like him. Certainly, we cannot expect everybody to be like the sages of Serenya, certainly. But as all of you have said, by the special mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we are relishing what the sages of Serenya relished. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have access to this very, very special scripture, the Amalam Puranam. It is a spotless scripture. Srimad Bhagavatam is described as Amalam Puranam. It is a spotless scripture for Paramahamsas. Yeah, it's stated like that in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is for Paramahamsas. So what I want to say is that even though we may not have the qualification, we don't have the adhikar to really relish Srimad Bhagavatam as it's supposed to be relished, but the mere fact that we are connected to Srila Prabhupada, the mere fact that we are connected to Panchatattva, things have been made easier for us. There is a verse that says, Kantanchana smrite yasmin duskaram sukaram bhavet. That is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That things that are very difficult to become easy to execute if one remembers Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Things that are very difficult to achieve become very easy simply by remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in our daily practice, we chant the Panchatattva Maha Mantra after every round of our japa. So Srila Prabhupada has actually given us the process by which we can achieve something beyond our means. Simply by remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, things that are very difficult to grasp, things that are very difficult to understand, we can easily understand. And if we fail to remember Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, things that are very easy to understand, we'll miss it. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada has made it possible for us to hear Srimad Bhagavatam And according to our level of devotion, our level of dedication, our level of realizations, we drink the nectar at different levels. And so it's a fact that we are not on the level of the sages of Naimi Serenya. Sages of Naimi Serenya were saying, swado, swado, pade, pade. We are never tired of hearing. Keep speaking, keep speaking. We want to drink more. We want to drink more. That is the sages of Naimi Serenya. Are we also having the same? Do we have the same adhikar? Do we have the same taste? Actually, Bhagavatam means taste, to have a taste for hearing, taste for drinking. So, but we cannot rule out the fact that there may be some people amongst us who are tasting SRIMAD Bhagavatam. There may be some students amongst us who are testing SRIMAD Bhagavatam. Just like the holy name too. We are chanting the holy name, but the holy name is on different levels. Some people, when they chant the holy name, they're in ecstasy. They're experiencing Krishna right in the holy name. Does that mean that everybody chanting the holy name experiencing the same thing? No. But that does not rule out the fact that somebody is not enjoying the holy name, testing the holy name. You can't rule that out also. So the mercy is made available by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada has connected us to a Panchatattva. And anyone who remembers a Panchatattva day in and day out, difficult things become easy. So on that ground, we can say there are some devotees who are relishing Srimad Bhagavatam. There are some devotees who are relishing the holy name. But we can't generalize it. We cannot generalize the fact that nobody is relishing Bhagavatam. Neither can we generalize the fact that everyone is qualified to hear Bhagavatam. But simply because the Prabhupada is so merciful, so kind, he has given us everything that will help us to understand Bhagavatam by connecting us to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And every day we are remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And just by remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everything becomes possible. That is what I want to say. I don't know whether I've made some impact on that question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Yes.
When you ended it was so beautiful, and then you just summarize everything. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for those who are Amala Bhaktas, because it's Amala scripture. It's Amala, so it's meant for Amala Bhaktas. And that does not mean that it's not available for everybody. It's available for everybody. But that does not also still mean that it is released by everybody in the same way. So that summarizes everything. At least it touches all the areas of concern and point of reference from all of the comments that we've had. Thank you so much for doing that beautiful summarization. Thank you so much. Devaki Priti said, also, I think she's also, thank you so much, Shivas Das Kari. I really appreciated what you just shared. Yeah, so that's exactly the way I feel also. The way you captured all of the areas of references and summarize it together. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Harichakra Prabhu, please kindly unmute and ask a question. Simon Harichakra Prabhu, kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Actually, I have two questions. One of them is my actual question, and this second question is coming from the question Vara Prabhu was asking and the comments that have been said about it. Yeah, I greatly appreciate all the contributions that have been given. It's perfect. Yeah, like Shivas Vanachari is saying that the way he has explained it, that the mere fact that not all of us are relation Bhagavatam doesn't mean there aren't people who are not relationing. yeah, it's perfectly acceptable. But I'm still, maybe I did not understand Prabhu's question properly. But if I understood it, the way I understood it is that, look, it's like if you speak Bhagavatam, if I preach Bhagavatam, I speak, and I tell all the glories of Bhagavatam, that is so nectarian that once you begin to hear it, you keep on, you want to hear and hear and hear. And I give all the glories. Now, my question is, doesn't it also come to the same thing that one time I asked, the same question that I asked, that even though whatever we are presenting is truth, that all the glories of Bhagavatam is truth that we are saying, but if somebody listens, somebody has been coming to the Bhagavatam class every day, hearing the Bhagavatam, with the expectation that he's also going to relish the way we are talking about the nectar of Bhagavatam, and when you hear Bhagavatam, the benefits and how your consciousness is going to be raised. But this person has been hearing Bhagavatam, and he always feels, so where is it? Where is the what do we call it? The nectarian thing that how am I not feeling it too? So is that not going to discourage the person? That why is it that everybody is relishing it, but me alone, I'm not relishing anything? So in other words, if I understood Varah Prabhu's question properly, what I understood him is that even though we can speak about all the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, but I guess we should also go to the extent of explaining that this level of relation, the nectar of Bhagavatam, doesn't come overnight. That it needs to be gradually built up. We need to gradually build it up before we can come to that level. So that if the beginner is not relishing it in the beginning, then he will realize that, oh, it takes a while. Because I take my solace from Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, where Krishna says that once you are situated in the boat of transcendence, if even you are considered to be the most sinful among all sinners, you are sure to attain your goal because you are properly situated. That Srila Prabhupada is so merciful that he has put us in this transcendental boat of Krishna consciousness. And as long as we remain in that boat, sincerely in our heart, we remain in that boat, then gradually Prabhupada has assured us, and Krishna himself has assured us, that we will eventually reach our goal. That aspect I perfectly believe in. But the only problem I have is the exalted level that we always present the philosophy. And me personally, I think sometimes it discourages some people. Instead of encouraging them, it rather discourages them. Unlike if we are able to present it and go further to explain that, hey, this is the ultimate goal that we can come to, but somehow or the other, it takes time. We need to build it up, and finally we come to that level. This is my little contribution. Now, if I'm permitted, let me ask my question.
Go ahead.
Okay. My question is, when Sahadeva Prabhu was speaking, and the question Chaitanya Prima Prabhu asked, we know there is the real ego. There's the real ego. There is mind, intelligence, what do we call it? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, and false ego. So where is the false ego? Where does the false ego reside? Because we know the real ego is the real we, right? When I say me, I'm the real ego. That is the soul proper. So where does the false ego come in? And if the false ego is there, where does the false ego reside?
Hare Krishna, that's a very nice question, because they are all subtle. The mind, intelligence, ego, they are all subtle. And one cannot, by scientific means, go to the lab and separate the intelligence from the mind in the lab. It's impossible. And that is why in the Yoga Sutras, they understand that even though mind is one substance, it has different aspects. And we may call it different names due to our lack of language. But you're right. Where are we going to locate the intelligence? Where are we going to locate the ego? Where are we going to locate the false ego? So I don't know if someone else has something else to say on that. But going back to what Shimabara Prabhu was saying, and I'll check over what you were just saying. There are so many things said in our scriptures, so many things, that whoever hears this Bhagavatam, even for once, even unwillingly, even grudgingly, you know, that's why I was saying sometimes at work, I try to make someone mention the name of Krishna. I'll tell somebody that I'm not a Christian. I said, what's your religion? I said, I'm a Krishna. And then I will write it for him to repeat it. Because the understanding is that just by mentioning or uttering the name of Krishna, whether consciously or unconsciously, whether willingly or unwillingly, there is benefit. The benefit might not be realized today, but certainly there is benefit because Krishna is absolute and there is no difference between his name, his form, and his person. So there are so many things said in scriptures that this kund, once you take a bath in this kund, if you want to have knowledge, take a bath in this kund, you will acquire knowledge. Some people take a bath in that kund and they do not acquire knowledge. You know? But in this kund, you once you dip yourself into it, you, even if you do not have riches, you have riches. There are such things spread all over in the scriptures. But we also understand it that we go to the holy places, the holy pilgrimages, places, not because of the place itself, but because of the association of the devotees. And so wherever there are devotees, and that is why Bhaktivedanta Maharaj wanted to prove to the world that undoubtedly we are encouraged to go to Vrindavan, Mayapur. These are really places, Dwaraka, Krishna, amazing pastimes. But he chose to leave his body in Gitanagari. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada visited Gitanagari. And wherever the pure devotee visits, it's a holy town. Krishna is there, it's holy town. And so again, in our scriptures, it is said that wherever we have our temple, it's holy town. That does not mean that we don't have to visit the holy places, but if one is unable to visit the holy places and we have a dam, we have a temple, it's also holy. So this is the complex thing in spiritual life, in Sanskrit. It says yes and no, but it does not have any conflict. It is both yes and no. At the same time, there is no conflict. Like I was saying, Narada Muni, how can anyone ever even begin to imagine that Mohini is not beautiful? But according to Narada Muni, it says the beauty of Radharani makes Mohini to be nothing. So just like what's the name? This devotee, Srivas Vanachari, please remind me. This devotee who was a medical doctor by profession and a follower of Lord Chaitanya, but he wouldn't worship Krishna other than Ramachandra.
Okay, that is
Murari Gupta.
Murari Gupta, thank you. Murari Gupta, yes. So Murari Gupta, there is no difference between Sri Ram and Sri Krishna, but he would never abandon Sri Ram for anyone else. So it's taste and ras, like you may say. So we're all saying the same thing, but I truly want to attempt to re-emphasize on what Srimad Prabhu was saying, that the bottom line is that we should not take for granted the opportunity we have to reading and studying Bhagavatam. It is meant for very, very highly elevated people. And somehow or other, we are given this privilege. It is not a right. We have no right to study the Bhagavatam. It's a privilege given to us. And therefore, we have to take it as much as we can and make the best use as much as we can. Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you. If I can come in?
Yes.
Can I? Okay.
I just wanted to respond to Arishaka Prabhu's question on the way Sahadev Prabhu answer that question. That's a beautiful one. And when he was asking about the mind, where it is, the ego, and all of that. And it reminds me something that we learned in conflict resolution. You know, there is this concept of the 5 whys when in solving conflict or in finding answers to certain seemingly difficult things to in misunderstanding. And one example that I often give when it comes to that time of discussion is that someone asks, so where is Sahadev living? So someone will say Sahadev is living in the US. It's correct. It's absolutely correct. Sahadev is living in the US. But Sahadev is not living in the US. And but it's not living in the US. Yes, it's living in the US, but where? In the US. Then he goes further to say, he's living in a particular state in the US, Pennsylvania. And then from there, but it's not even in Pennsylvania, it's in another location. So like that, when you start asking the why continuously, the complete experts use that why questions to ask further, deeper and deeper and deeper, and until when they get to the bottom of everything. So like Arishaka Prabhu was asking, when we talked about the false ego, the mind, and intelligence, there's subtle, and I like the way he answered that question because it is subtle. It is difficult to point it unless one comes to that level. And that's why it requires a little bit of in-depth to go into the details. When we go into the details of the mind, intelligence, and ego, it's something very deep. But it's not just something that we can just say it is here or it is there, because it's actually subtle. So it's interesting. I like the way you responded to that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna Prabhu, I think that answers your question. So
that's where I want to come in about this question. And that is the subject. That's what I'm saying. That is analytical study of matter and the soul. That is the Sankhya Yoga. And if you don't really take time to understand this, it will always be on the surface and you will not be able to appreciate the depth of this knowledge. It is very, very deep. I give you just a little briefings about, what it asks. So what is the mind? So what is intelligence? Where is it situated? So of course, you know what the senses are. They are the sensors, informing us. We see this, we touch this, we know this, etc. And then the mind creates thoughts about them. The mind is a machine that is creating thousands of thoughts in a second. And the intelligence is to cipher through and take a decision about what the mind has created as thought. So we're having millions of thoughts going on in our head every minute, and that's the mind working. The mind is responding to the sensory, the sensors that the senses are sending, and the mind is creating thoughts around them for the intelligence to take a decision. So the intelligence now, based on the information and its capacity to study, the thought process that the mind is creating, now decides on what to do. Now, our ABC in Krishna consciousness is that you are not the body. You are not the body. We cannot tell how many times we have heard that. But we have, at some point, we have to start hearing also, you are not the mind. You are not the mind. You are not the mind. And you are not the intelligence. You are not the intelligent. We have not been hearing that enough because we're almost all the time on that ABC platform, identifying with the physical, gross senses and the body. But then when our mind start acting and we begin to see, the power of the mind, you have to be reminded you are not that mind. And you have to be reminded when you are taking decision, you are not the one taking the decision. You are not the intelligence. You have to distance yourself from that also. So this is the analytical study that we call Sankhya. And the deeper you go into that subject, another aspect of it is mystical, very, very mystical. And that is why Krishna says that the result that is attained by one can also be attained by both, by the other, that they are the same. So anyway, I'm just saying, making that comment to to buttress what Arishakar Prabhu is saying, that you don't come to the point of distinguishing these things if you don't study them. And if you're just brushing them to the side, you are just at the periphery of the knowledge. You are not even making any inroad at all. So we should stop this attitude of wanting to brush them aside and take our time to study. And that depends on what level we are, or what type of practitioner we want to be. You see, it is a very difficult matter because we all think, because we're in Bhagavatam class, we're all studying Bhagavatam. No, many people are just there to hear. But those who are studying are different. And then those who are practicing are different. Because you have to transcend the study level to even be able to practice. And many have not even started studying yet at all. But when you start studying and you become enamored, then you see how humble you become, seeing yourself as nowhere, nobody. And then the practice, you take it so seriously and you adore it. So anyway, I don't want to take over. So I thank you all for the contributions made. Just one last point. An attempt has been made through the Bhakti Vriksha program. I think they must have realized this at some point, dealing with masses of people in India. And through that Bhakti Vriksha program, they try to create different level of ashrayas, of faithfuls, and let people be able to identify themselves with the level where they belong and understand what is their duty and what they must know at that level. And not until you are making that type of systematic advancement in the study, and when everything is mumble jumble and lump up together, you don't even know what is your level. So is there any educational system where you don't know your level? But in our Krishna consciousness spiritual system, it's like nobody seems to know his level until maybe by initiation or by whatever. But in terms of understanding and many don't even know their level in the understanding of the philosophy. They don't know it. And that is not the way educational system is supposed to be. You are supposed to be able to know your level and what you should know at that level. And when you go beyond that, what you're supposed to know at that other level. So this is important for us. So now, last point, I'm sorry, I don't like taking so much time. All what Srivas Prabhu contributed is perfect and fine. However, why I love my Gurudev, why I always adore him, he is the teacher who speaks and it makes everybody, feel connected with the teaching. When Gurudev is speaking, it brings it to the level of every sincere seeker. It brings it to the level of every sincere seeker, not necessarily trying to sound high or trying to be exotic. But you will find that wherever Gurudev speaks, the audience always feel attracted to his message. No one feels left out. And that is what I'm trying to say. So thank Prabhu for giving us an introduction about that. Prabhu who spoke, a Brajabasi from Vashana, and with all this educational spiritual background. Yeah, when he's speaking to any audience, he may take everyone together. But that is not the style of my Guru. That is not the style. So, and that is what I'm trying to pinpoint, that we should avoid this in general in Krishna consciousness. That when we're speaking to an audience, we have to make sure that we're actually catering to the need of the audience. So he was speaking at this level, and he's been used to speaking to people of high devotional level. But when you're speaking to a general mixed up audience, you have to be able to make sure that everybody feels nourished. Everybody feels nourished, not like some people are getting nourished, but maybe some people are getting left out. Not that, but I love his class. Fantastic, full of nectars. I enjoy it. But some recommendations he made was what I was saying, that is for Paramamsas. And I mentioned, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, if you're not on the level of Paramamsa, that is not for you. And he just have to accept it, but he was trying to, make his point. Well, of course, I accepted, but we have to understand that we have to be able to present the philosophy in a way that ordinary practitioners should be eager. Every time they hear, they should become enthused to want to go deeper. Not that every time they hear, they feel like, oh, this is not for me. And that happens a lot. Many may not be able to say, Prabhu, I cannot do what you are saying. But in their mind, they say, well, this is not for me. That is not how our preaching should fall. It should fall in such a way that everybody becomes eager to drink more and to want to advance further. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Sriman Vara, for your comment and explanation of your line of thinking. Actually, this brings me to remembrance of some few, getting over a year or two now, when this platform initially started, there was a point that some concerned devotees were saying, should we even be doing an everyday Bhagavatam class? Maybe we should do Bhagavad Gita class instead. And some even suggested that maybe we should do Bhagavatam class on a special day and then restrict it to certain level of devotees and do Bhagavad Gita on another day and then open it for so many other persons. And this is always a kind of a concern or contributions from devotees, because I remember, just like Sriman Vara Prabhu said, it's like Gurudev, when somebody asking a question sometimes that it's like Krishna Pad, why is it that when you speak while you are in the US, you speak differently? When you're in the other part of the world, you're speaking differently. But when you come to West Africa, you speak differently. As like Krishna Pad said, yes, it is intentional because I know the level of devotees who are in these different locations. So I speak according to their levels of adhika or understanding so that they can connect. So every speaker, that is why it is part of the speaking training, that for a good speaker, he looks at the eyes of all of the listeners so that he can blend. Not everybody is an expert speaker So it doesn't, not everybody understands these techniques, but a good speaker, he looks at everybody. And that's why you see that some speakers will insist when they come to speak that they want to see the face of everyone. But most often times, we see that devotees reluctantly doesn't want to actually put on their videos. And this is because they do not see the importance, because actually it makes it difficult for a speaker to speak when he is not seeing the expressions, the eye contact of his audience, because he does not know whether he's communicating or not communicating. So to speak to an audience that is not physical is always too difficult to speak. And some speakers will not even agree to speak. And we see, like when Giriraj Maharaj comes on the platform, he will emphatically say, I'm pleading with all of the devotees to please kindly put on their videos. This is the reason why they do that, because they want to see what is the response level. They want to connect to the individual acts that are in the audience so that they can give them information. So, but then, in summary, when we look at this Bhagavatam class, and then when we take it from the point of the fact that it is difficult to actually blend everybody simultaneously, because like Srivas Vanachari was just telling us, sometimes we do not know how many persons are watching this class on the Zoom platform or on the YouTube platform, or how many millions of persons that will still look at this video some years to come or decades to come forward. So every speaker has to find a way to adjust, but it's difficult because our scheduling of the teachers or the speakers of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam is not that programmed in such a way that it speaks to a particular audience. But all the contributions that he said is wonderful, is fantastic, it is appreciative. But one thing that we can resonate with is that SRIMAD Bhagavatam, or topics about transcendental subject matter, depends on the readiness of the listeners, whether it's on the lowest platform, in the middle platform, in the highest platform. Sometimes people ask, how is Srila Prabhupada able to communicate with the Westerners when he came to America, when he has practically a tone that is very difficult to comprehend? But these American people who have never related with even Indian personalities before, who does not know that, they were able to connect. Why? Because they were ready. So sincerity and readiness of individuals ready. Even when a subject matter is spoken at the topmost level of transcendental level, if someone is sincere, Krishna has a way of connecting with everyone, no matter how highly the person is speaking or low the person is speaking. It depends ultimately on the listener. If the listener is sincere, Krishna will penetrate no matter what the language the speaker says, because ultimately Krishna uses every situation to connect to all of the Jiva Atma, because he wants to bring every one of them back. I think this is what I would want to share. We've been here for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And thank everybody for their contributions. I thank you so much for making it interactive discussions. We thank His Grace Sriman Sahadeva Prabhu for bringing out so many line of thinking and thoughts through his speeches. Thank you so much. Sriman Vara Prabhu says, this is the jet age. We have to adapt to the technological demand. The technology gives us the option to be seen or not. That's why it is. Yeah, that's why I touches all of those areas. You see, technology that we hardly can find or not find. But at the end of the day, the important thing is that whoever comes, one thing we are comfortable, we're satisfied with is that whoever at all that comes, if the person is sincere, Krishna will find a way to resonate with the person. So Sriman Sahadeva Prabhu, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, may I conclude by referencing this verse, which actually buttresses what you just said. It's amazing. It's Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2, chapter 7, verse 3. Canto 2, 7, verse 3. And in the purport, Prabhupada quotes same 1426. And I highlighted here. Prabhupada says, even in the non-liberated stage, a loving entity can be directly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, or his plenary expansions like Ram, Narasimha. Thus, with the proportionate improvement of such transcendental devotional service, the devotee makes definite progress toward Brahma Gatim or Atma Gatim, and ultimately attains Kapilasya Gatim, or the abode of the Lord without difficulty. The antiseptic potency, this is very important, the way Srila Prabhupada uses words. The antiseptic potency of devotional service to the Lord is so great that it can neutralize the material infection even in the present life of a devotee. A devotee does not need to wait for his next birth for complete liberation. So I think this is a very beautiful thing. Srila Prabhupada is assuring us that no matter where we're coming from, no matter what our situation is, we should just take it, live it, and leave the rest to him. Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adi, for referencing. That's a very beautiful way to round it up. So wherever we are, if we are ready, Krishna has a way of connecting with us, irrespective of who we are. I gave a book to one radio presenter. I went to on a TV, on a radio, no, that was a radio program. Sometimes not too long, a month. I was so much in anxiety because that radio presenter, when we finished, he was attracted to me and then we started talking. So he said, you would like to know more about this? I said, no, you don't have to wait. So I went into the car. My intention, based on my calculation, was that I was going to give him coming back because I knew I had the coming back in the car. But when I went into the car, I took
Frozen.
Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Yeah, no, I think
you received a call.
No, it was just network.
Okay.
So that presenter, so I ended up carrying Quest for Enlightenment. When I carried the Quest for Enlightenment, I was so much in anxiety for days. I was worried. I said, this guy will not be able to understand what I have given him. And he will not be able to connect. Because I went back. I went to go back and read Quest for Enlightenment. I read the introduction. I said, this guy will not be able to connect. So I wasn't satisfied until after about 2 weeks. I wasn't hearing to call me back. So I had to call him. So when I called him, and I said, how are you doing? How is everything? He said, fine. So I said, well, I gave you some, before I even finished saying that, he said, yeah, you gave me a book. That book is so wonderful. I'm reading it. I want to finish it. As I'm reading the book, I'm taking notes. I'm going to come with a whole lot of questions for you on that question. When I heard that, I was in peace. I said, what? Realized I was so much in anxiety because I was thinking this guy can never understand this book in any way. But somehow the other Krishna, and this is somebody who's never actually relate or discuss with any Krishna conscious person before. So this is how transcendental knowledge is all about. It happens every other day. So thank you all for actually making it a wonderful discussion day. So if there are no more comments or contributions or comments, I will humbly request that we bring the class to a close for today against tomorrow. So on that note, I will request everyone to please kindly unmute and let us loudly chant a powerful Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate our great speaker today and everyone. Loud Complete Mahamantra.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo
Thank you, Sahadeva Prabhu, very much.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Devak. I didn't know you were here. Hare Krishna.